Fairfield, and welcome to another episode of About Town. I'm Ana Petero, and here with me this afternoon is Ms. N'dea Johnson. N'dea Johnson is a product of Fairfield, born and raised. She first attended Nelda Mundy Elementary School, after which she went to Cordelia Elementary School. When she completed Cordelia Elementary School, she attended Green Valley Middle School and completed her education at FSUSD at Rodriguez High School. Go Mustangs! N'dea is also a product of the community college. She attended DVC and is a former student of one of my good friends, Professor Robert Hawkins. Go Robert Hawkins is also the director of forensics at DVC. When N'dea graduated from DVC, she moved on to UCLA, where she earned her bachelor's degree in political science, and then most recently her master's degree from Columbia University in educational policy. What an accomplishment, right?
Thank you.
N'dea,
yes.
Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for coming back to Fairfield. Tell us why you came back.
My community, I would definitely say that is 100% why. I feel at home here, and this is where I feel, the most support for everything that I do, and being there and having that village that's been there since, obviously since I've been 5 to now being 24. And so I've literally almost been in Fairfield for almost 2 decades. And so it just made sense that I get all my educational training at these institutions and stuff that are built to, teach me and groom me in those types of spaces, to now come back and bring that same knowledge and education that I was able to get and provide it in my community. So I came back, also my family, but
yes, absolutely
I came back for my community, and it's I saw the things that may not have been right growing up that now I want to go ahead and fix, because I now have the knowledge and more power to be able to make an impact. So I definitely came back for the community.
Excellent. And then you started a nonprofit organization of which you were CEO and founder of. It's Yellow Heart Committee?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, so Yellow Heart Committee is a nonprofit that I started. I started it out of a traumatic experience for myself. So back in 2019, I was sexually assaulted. And so about 2 months later, I had to go in for a planned surgery that was nothing related to the assault, and I actually came out paralyzed. And so what happened to me is called conversion disorder, which is when you convert psychological stress into a physical reaction. So I was so traumatized by the rape that when they put me under anesthesia for the surgery, my body thought I was being attacked again. And so I ended up damaging my nerves and having to relearn all of my functions, from walking, talking, eating, everything again. And so that's kind of when I found out that it was all tied to an assault, because my mental health was so damaged, it really hurt me. I was like, wow, I didn't know that, mental and emotional health mattered that much. And even the irony with it is right after my assault had happened, 2 days later, I had to go back to UCLA and give a speech on mental health. Yes. And so I'm giving a speech in front of 200, 300 people talking about how great my mental health is, how well I'm doing. And they don't even know that 48 to 72 hours ago, I was raped. And so it definitely took a toll on me. And that's where this advocacy started, is that when I realized that this was tied to an assault. And so I decided that I was going to report my rapist, which I did. The minute I was able to walk, the first thing I did was walk to a police station. And then second was I wanted to start something that would raise awareness around mental health and trauma. And so that's where my nonprofit came from. And
And how old were you when you started this?
22.
22 years old.
22 or I think it was 22.
Oh my word.
Yeah.
And so how'd you go about starting it? Did you get support from friends and family?
So actually when I first ended up in the hospital, I didn't really tell people that much. And then after about a week of being in there and then finding out that was the reason, I did open up about it. So I didn't tell everybody why specifically I was in the hospital until after I had gotten out. And so I did a Facebook post, and I was like, this is what happened to me. This is my mission and dream now. And will you all support me? And the community turned out. I had a giant bougie brunch fundraiser, which was all organized by young people. Super proud of that. Did it in 3 weeks, raised almost $3,000. And the whole theme of it was the importance of using your voice. And so I had some local politicians present, people in nonprofit, 80 people came. It was so nice. And since then it's taken off. And even virtually, in a sense, we really did well when we actually switched online, because we were able to mobilize across the nation. Congresswoman Katie Hill, she always says to us, she's like, yeah, you guys are a national nonprofit. Because we have people who are in New York, Jersey, Georgia, California, all over over and we're all mobilizing together. And so our work is specifically supporting the holistic mental health of trauma survivors. And we do that through political advocacy, education, and also through community outreach. And so we ended up meeting with over 40 elected officials in 6 months.
My goodness.
Where we drafted a legislation to be introduced to the legislator. We're having our first hearing at the Capitol with Assemblymember Grayson on September 20th. Done a ton of community events, partnered with, Time's Up, Blavity, all of these different orgs. And it's crazy. It's a lot. And I love the fact that it's run by young people. And young people of color and Black people is what it's run by. And I'm so proud of that.
Your generation is changing the world.
Yes.
I've always said that because you have no choice, right?
Yeah.
It's right here, and you have, and just so much of what's happening around the world. You don't have it, as I said, you don't have a choice. You're solving problems. I think that's brilliant. When you came out after 2 days after and gave your speech, I mean, there was a tower of strength. How did that make you feel? Like, did you have to do it because of the strength to show that you're a woman of color, and didn't want to? I mean, what did that make you feel to have to do that?
I mean, now looking back, I wish I hadn't done it. And I mean, I did it well. I had a ton of good feedback.
Yes.
Everybody loved it. And I have people coming up to me like, yeah, I really took some gems from you and stuff like that. And I'm just sitting here holding back tears.
Yes.
I'm like, thank you. But I'm hurting really bad right now. Like, when I gave that speech, I hadn't slept in 2 days. I hadn't eaten. And there's photos that I look back and I'm like, my eyes are so puffy. It's almost so apparent to me that I'm like, I was in a lot of pain and I should have not done that.
Yes.
But I wanted to because I knew what I was going to say would resonate with people. And it did. And so, I mean, I'm glad. I wish I would have put myself first in that situation and stepped back. I actually was given that option. So after my assault, what was kind of hard is that I was a resident assistant at UCLA. So I had been trained in rape crisis response. And so now I'm the victim, and then I'm also the person who responds to victims.
Yes.
And so it's like this whole thing in my head of okay, yes, you can react and cry, but this is what the steps are. And so I immediately notified my boss, I notified my therapist, and I let a few close friends know. And then after I gave my speech, later when we had our admin meeting for our team, that's when I let my team know. I was like, you all, I've been assaulted. This is what happened. I really need your support right now because I'm going through a lot, and I'm not going to be able to handle certain calls that my residents may ask me to do because it'll be a trigger for me. And so I'm very grateful for them. I always say I wouldn't have finished UCLA early if it wasn't for my team, because there were days I really just couldn't get out of bed, or I couldn't eat, or I just couldn't sleep because I was scared of having nightmares, and I wouldn't have been able to do it if they haven't showed up the way they did.
Yeah.
Friends from home actually came and stayed with me every weekend for about a month to make sure that I was okay. It's just the way my community showed up for me, it's just crazy. And I can never be more grateful than what turnout I did get throughout that time.
Yeah, networking is so important, especially when you do it with a genuine heart.
Yes.
And people can feel it, right? What did Maya Angelou say? People won't remember what you say or what you did, but they will remember how you make them feel.
Yes.
If you made them feel feel comforted and feel welcome and valued, they'll do the same thing for you. I was just thinking, there's this book by Mickey Kendall, it's called Hood Feminism. And the reason why I bring it up is because when you got up there 2 days later, I was thinking the tower of strength that Black women have.
Yeah.
That we're expected to do that. And then when you do that, succeed, they've always been able to do that. Nothing fragile about them.
Yep. And there's this whole saying, I actually saw it on Twitter, and this woman said, I never want to be called resilient again.
Yes.
And that's something that I've been sharing a lot because I've realized that now. I'm so tired of always having to be resilient.
Yes.
Just let me feel what I want to feel. And so that's definitely something that I agree with, is that's why I kind of regret giving that speech, because I wish I just would have took that time myself instead of having that mindset that I have to do this. I can't disappoint. I can't let people down. And I'm like, that's only an expectation that I'm putting on myself because of outside factors. And that's something that I can't allow to continue to happen.
Yeah. The benefits that you did it, and you can say, I can do it, but now you know I don't have to.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I'm a human being, and I'm allowed to feel and allowed to process and go through this experience and not have to be expected to always be present.
Yeah.
Right? Oh my
And
gosh.
what's crazy is that they told me, my boss and my therapist, because they're all part of residential life at UCLA, and I was giving the speech to other RAs, and they were like, you don't have to do it if you don't want to. Yeah. And I was the one that was like, no, I'm going to still do it. And it's just there weren't even that many outside pressures, but the pressures I put on myself myself, being a Black woman, is what made me end up doing it. And so it's definitely something I've learned to now prioritize my feelings first before trying to like please other people, essentially.
Absolutely, because if you think about, through history, all the Black women have always been a tower of strength, and nobody's been there to prop them up.
Yep.
And so here, your generation, hopefully you're understanding that you do have help. Our generation is to help you.
Yes.
As this saying is called, learn, earn, and return.
Yes.
The children's job is to learn, and your job is to earn. Our job is to return from the wisdom of our experience, to give back and prop you all up into whatever it is that you want to do to help you in that and support you in that direction.
Yeah.
In addition to this, to your nonprofit, you're doing some other work that you were telling me about. Tell me a little bit about that. With different members of the community of different city council members. Is that what you were going to talk about?
Yeah. So related to we're now offering our first direct service, which is therapy for the unhoused, and so we're partnering with City Church Fairfield and Pastor Scott, and so we're really doing this in an effort to hopefully make it be bigger than what it is. Like we want this to be not even looking at it as the pilot program, but something that we can start and then move to other places.
Is this starting with your nonprofit partnering with this church?
Yes.
To do.
And so we're basically providing right now 3 group sessions, and so it's a women's group, a men's group, and co-ed. And so however they choose to identify, if they don't fall into the binary, they can go to which group they feel comfortable with. And then we'll start providing individual therapy. But we basically had spent a couple of weeks prior to going there, getting to know the community, getting to know who's there, and finding out what they want. It's something that really stood out to me is that we kind of held impromptu focus groups to figure out like what
within
topics.
the community.
Yes, so they're unhoused and they're in this program where they're also, detoxing, and they may have substance abuse issues and things like that. And so basically when we were there, we're asking, what do you all want to talk about? Like what will make you comfortable in therapy? What are things you want to uncover? Right. And so when I came back, I think it was actually last week, and I announced like, this is what the class sessions will entail. And I said, we took everything you all said and we applied it to these lessons now. And the room just erupted and like cheers, and I was like, why, like what's going on? And they said that it's people don't usually listen to us, and the fact that you did and applied it meant a lot to them. And it was just like, wow, something so minute to me was such a big deal to them. And it's just like, that was the moment that I really felt like, wow, I'm making a difference. Like, of course, people tell me that all the time. Yes. And I feel like sometimes I get jaded to it. Like, I'm like, yes, okay, whatever. But that, seeing the people, seeing their reaction, is seeing like how happy they were, it meant so much to me. I actually got in my car and started crying.
Oh my goodness. And what you said that you've been building a relationship for a few months, and people who are houseless, people in general, when others come in and say, oh, here, let me come and help you, it's like, they question and they're skeptical because so many times people come and want to help and they leave. Yeah. But building relationships is so important. Again, people want to feel valued, right?
Yeah, that's my big thing. And I think that's something I try to practice for almost every project I do, is cultivating a relationship with the community. And so one of our other projects that we have is called Dear Latino Parents. And so that
Dear Latino Parents?
Yeah, Dear Latino Parents. And so it's all about, destigmatizing mental health and therapy in the Latino community, specifically focusing on Central Valley, which is not America, but in California. Right. And so we were down in Fresno in that community, actually meeting people, talking to them, saying like, what would you all want? Like, where do you see things lacking in your community and related to mental health? And so it's so nice going there because, one, we're in their home, we're in their space, and they're allowing us to be in that space, which is really important. And we're learning from their environment, and we can see those things. So I got to go on a tour of like the city that's right outside of Fresno and learn about all the hardships that field laborers are going through and what women are going through out there, and those communities. And so it's so great when we get to physically go there and cultivate and develop that relationship before bringing the project. And because we don't know, like we have an idea of what we think would be solving the problem, but they know themselves because they live there.
Right. And listen to their narrative, right? So many times people, let me come and help, but they don't ask them what kind of help do they need.
Exactly.
And in addition to that, so many people want to participate, they want to be heard, but they don't know where to go.
Yeah.
And so just somebody come and say, hey, what can I do for you?
Yeah.
They're like, you want to do something something for me. You know?
Yeah, and it's so much about learning cultures and experiences, because even that one day trip of being down there, I learned so much about communities that I didn't even know existed. And like one that I often share with people is like, I believe it was the Hmong community, which I may be wrong, but they used to live up like in the mountains of California, and then they slowly migrated to Fresno. And so when that community came, there was a ton of house fires that kept popping up like on stoves, and they were like, why does this keep happening? And then what they realized is that that community never had used the stove before, so they didn't know how to do it, and they kept unintentionally setting their houses on fire. And so it's just like, those are things that I don't think about, like you know, educating people on common household appliances that I know how to use regularly, but to them, when they come from these like underserved communities, are not aware of. And that's just something like I'm being cognizant of, and being like, okay, maybe people aren't well versed in this area as much as I think they are. And so those things happen.
Understanding just different cultures and things that we take for granted, and knowing that we live in a community that looks like this now. America doesn't look like just one. We're not homogenous. We're all different groups, and that come from different walks of life, different traditions, different cultures. Like, for example, in some cultures, you don't wear your shoes in the house. You know, some people don't know that. They just walk in, and they just walk in with their shoes instead of being aware of your surroundings. Situational awareness is so important. Right?
Definitely.
And also intercultural competence, because we come from different groups. And so instead of let me tell you what I can do for you.
And that's why it's so important. Like with our org, we always say that we don't speak for the survivor, we empower and uplift them and give them the opportunity to speak for themselves. And so even in our events, we make sure we replicate that. When we have the elected officials there, we're not speaking, we're having them say exactly what policy they think needs to change, or what really hurts them, and things like that. And so it's just really important for us to empower those who are being hurt, because we all have our own stories and narratives, but the reason we're all a part of this org is because we want to uplift those who may not have had the confidence or the space beforehand to share their experience.
And you're not wasting money, and you're not wasting time. Because you're going to the resource or resources, right? What do you need? What can we do to help you? And then they tell you. And so because so many times you get all of this money, it's like, what can we spend it? You know, and we just throw money at the problem, and we don't go and dissect it and go to the people who need the help the most, and what can we do to help them, you know, instead of trying to be their savior.
And that's the thing too, nobody in the organization is paid. So everything is strictly volunteer. And it's so funny because yesterday we had our onboarding meeting for 13 new people to join us, and it's just like, for me, it's still crazy to think that, wow, we're growing so much. Like, people really believe in this mission of something that I thought of. Like, I tell people, I gave birth to YHC in a hospital bed, literally. I was in the hospital when this started, and like, to see 2 years later, all these people who support it and back it and believe in it and are willing to do this unpaid it's crazy to me. Like, nobody, including myself, is paid on this org, and we still get everything that we do done.
If one were to participate and be a part of of this organization, how does one sign up?
So our website, we always have the volunteer staff positions on there, and then we're actually going to be releasing a lot of projects that we're going to need help on. So like the Dear Latino Parents one I mentioned, we're going to be recruiting more members for that. The Community Pulses one, which is therapy for the unhoused, we're definitely going to need way more social workers for that. And then we have a couple of others. We're actually doing mental health curriculum for a continuation school in Richmond, and so we're going to be looking for people who are education based and can write curriculum and develop it. And then we have one project that we're not going to reveal yet, so we're trying to figure out the words to not expose and give it away, but start recruiting for it. But just know I need programmers.
Nice. And what's the website?
Yellowheartcommittee.org.
Yellowheartcommittee.org. And how does one donate to this organization?
Same thing. All of it's tied to our website, and then our social media is what I definitely encourage people to go on to.
And where can we
so our Instagram is yellowheartcommittee_. Unfortunately, somebody had already used Yellow Heart Committee, and we can't find it. But so there's an underscore at the end. But a lot of our content's there. In April, we actually did a campaign called Healthy Sex for the Culture, and we produced like little skits and informationals and things like that around like healthy sex or healthy communication with sex, and talking about like slut shaming and whorephobia. All of those things that people don't like talking about is what we talk about.
We need to talk about it. It's about time people start getting uncomfortable.
Especially
able to speak your mind and speak your voice.
Like we did one on myths and facts of sexual assault, and it's just like, these are all things that people are like, why do you have to talk about it? Like, why are you saying the quiet part out loud? And it's just like, this is how things change, is when you start actually addressing it and calling it what it is. So
and who knows, somebody can relate to that. This happened to me, or this is who I am, and finally somebody I can relate to something that someone's talking about, and it relates to me, and then find a place to go to it. So you're partnering up up with this church, with the name of the church again?
City Church Fairfield.
And then tell us about the program is, when does it start?
So it already started. It actually started last Saturday, and so it's going to continue for about 2 months.
And exactly at the location?
Yes. So we actually aren't taking any outside referrals. It's only people who are in the church for now, which is why we really want to start getting it bigger, so we can move it from just the church to people who just want to do it. Like I've already had a couple of emails from people who are like, "I saw your flyer. I want therapy," and I'm like, "Oh no! Like I'm sorry, we don't have the capacity to like do outside people yet." But that's the goal, is to eventually get there. And I really want it to remain free, because I know for me, therapy changed my life. And I don't know if I would even literally be here, because I dealt with issues of suicidal ideation and all that, if I didn't have therapy. And so I would love to be able to keep that free, and people are able to use it to their advantage.
So many people are traumatized and have been traumatized, especially, recently and over the last few years, and don't have the means to get therapy. And many people are suffering from PTSD, I mean, even myself, I've struggled since this pandemic has started to get therapy.
And I'm like, wow, I'm the one person you would think would be able to find a therapist like that. And I'm just like, okay, no, this isn't working. That's too much money, this and that. And so it's like even people who are trying to fight for the cause are struggling to get help through that.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you so much for doing that. First of all, thank you for coming back to Fairfield. And putting all of these programs together and helping the next generation. Gen Z, like I said, you're movers and shakers, you're changing the world. And just having you come back to our community, having, like I said, being born and raised here in Fairfield, going through our education system here in FSUSD and then DVC, and then going through your college, university career, and coming back and giving back to the community is so, so wonderful. Thank you so much for doing that, and thank you for joining us. Anytime you want to come back and talk about more programs that you're doing, please feel free to let us know, and come back. We'll be more than happy to talk to you and promote your programs here at FSUSD, at FSUSD, I'm sorry, at About Town, right here in Fairfield. So Fairfield, thank you very welcome, N'dea Johnson, back to our community. The movers and shakers who are changing Solano County and changing our community. The CEO and founder of Yellow Hearts Community. Please participate. Committee, sorry. And then go to her website. And that is yellowheartscommittee.com.
Just heart. So no hearts on there.
And then no S.
And then context for the name, because a lot of people ask, is that, so my mom, she passed from breast cancer when I was 12, but she was my biggest inspiration. Like, I'm probably the reason I am because of how she was and her energy. But her favorite color was yellow, and she would always say yellow means sunshine, sunflowers, and happiness for her.
Lovely.
And so I wanted to name my organization, because that's what I want to give back to my community, is sunshine, sunflowers, happiness.
Yellow Heart Committee. I remember that. As a breast cancer survivor myself, thank you so much for putting this community together and for coming back. So thank you again for joining us. This is another episode of About Town. And thank you again, N'dea, again, for coming back to our community and making a difference. See you again in our next episode.
Well, hi, everybody. I'm Greg Poff, director of the Solano College Sports Broadcasting Program, and we're here in the TV studio at Solano Community College, and I'd like to tell you about a great opportunity this summer. Now, typically with our summer class, we're covering sports. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we're opening up the class to all of you podcasters, YouTube influencers, to give you a chance to come in and create content that we can show on YouTube. You can have your own podcast. We can even put you on Channel 28 locally. Let's take a look at some of the equipment we have here in the studio. Come on. All right, we're here in the Solano College Sports Network studio control room to show you some of the equipment that you can use as a student here at Solano Community College. And the first thing I'd like to draw your attention to is the production unit system that we use. It's made by New Tech. It's the TriCaster system. This system is used by every major network. So you come to Solano Community College, you're going to learn video production on the TriCaster unit. So you'll be ready to go once you leave our program. You'll be trained on the same equipment that you would use in all of the major networks. You see the video production board here. We've got our speakers set up here. Here we've got our interface that you can use. So all kinds of equipment that you can use to be a professional in media production. Another great feature of our video production system, you'll be able to get training on the Allen and Heath audio board where you will learn the trade secrets for both radio and TV production. Here in the video editing suite, you will have access to Adobe Premiere and the entire Creative Cloud. If you can imagine it, you can create it right here in the Solano Community College TV studio. We have merged with Fairfield Cable Access, and that gives you the opportunity to use the same TV equipment that they use to produce their shows on local TV here in Fairfield, and that gives you the chance to also show your work on local TV.
College just got affordable. Up to 100% of enrollment fees can be reimbursed for first-time college students taking full-time classes. At Solano Community College, we are taking full advantage of this to further your future. With certificate and degree programs in industrial technology, aeronautics, biotechnology, and many others, Solano Community College is a staple for success. For more information, please contact the Financial Aid Office at 707-864-7000.